Go ahead and make sure that you have out the vocab from yesterday. We're just going to add to the same list, but go ahead and draw a squiggly line underneath the words from yesterday, whether you have your vocab notebook or your sheet of paper, because even when we're in our vocab notebooks, it's like Wonder, where some chapters have where most chapters only have a couple of words. So if we only do one chapter per page, we're going to run out of space really quickly. So everybody, whether you have your sheet of paper from yesterday or your vocab notebook, draw a squiggly line underneath number 3. And then under that squiggly line, we're going to write the title of this vocab, which is TPT. Chapter 2. I forgot this yesterday, but remember we put chapter titles in quotations. So the title of this chapter is Beyond Expectations. Here, I'm going to write expectations on the next line. You do not write it on the next line, but so that you can see. Zara, you're unmuted. Beyond Expectations. And then today's date. February 23rd, 2021. And then we underline titles. And we're going to start with number 4. Yes, Erin.
You're very, very glitchy, and I can't see the screen very well.
Okay. You're kind of glitchy too. Is that, let's see. Go ahead and mute yourself. Victoria?
My AirPods were dying, so I had to take them out.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Zadie?
About Erin's internet, I think it's just her because when I was on Zoom with her the other day, it was like that.
It might be. It probably is. In today's case, if there are glitches, I will tell you it's probably your internet because my internet is it's really fast and I'm the only one using it right now because I'm the only one home. So if it is real glitchy, I will say it's probably yours. It's not like when I'm at school and there's a bunch of people on. So if it is glitchy, it's probably yours. So you might just need to wait a second because I can't fix it on your end. However, if it does get glitchy on mine, it's probably only going to last for a couple seconds. And again, there's probably not anything I can really do about it. So just bear with us. Again, a lot of you haven't been on, so you just need to do your best. And if you need to go back and watch the videos later, they'll be on YouTube. Okay? So everybody, go ahead and mute yourselves. And let's start with number 4. Number 4 is the word peculiar. Peculiar. P-E-C-U-L-I-A-R. Peculiar. P-E-C-U-L-I-A-R. Peculiar. Yes, Victoria?
There's a word in there that says liar.
Well, there is, but that really has nothing to do with it because is pecu a word?
No.
Is it a prefix that you've ever heard before?
No.
No. So it's just a coincidence. So peculiar is an adjective. That's a C, not an E. It's just hard to write sideways. And it's an adjective. So it describes a noun. Peculiar, P-E-C-U-L-I-A-R. is an adjective. It's a describing word. It means that something, something is odd or strange. Now these are 3 words, but like I said, it's very hard to write sideways and below. Okay? So peculiar, P-E-C-U-L-I-A-R, is an adjective. It's a describing word. It means that something is odd or strange. So if you are describing something as peculiar, you're saying it's very odd or it's strange. A peculiar noise would be a weird noise that you're not expecting. That might be a little creepy. Prim, stop. Okay. Like I said, she's on medicine that makes her, and the longer she's on it, the more needy and whiny she gets. She only has to take it for a week though, but it's only day 3. Okay, can I erase number 4? Okay. Kingston, did you say yes? You're still muted. You're still muted, Kingston.
I just have 2 words left.
Okay, well hurry. Okay, the last words, Kingston, are odd or strange. I'm going to go ahead and erase. Okay, number 5 is the word, now this is a long word. Make sure you're spelling it exactly the way I have it. Carla, please make sure you're focusing. Are your headphones on both ears right now? Number 5 is the word monotonous. Monotonous. M-O-N-O-T-O-N-O-U-S. Monotonous. Carla, please make sure you're focusing. You need to have your eyes on here, not back there on the TV. There's nothing on that TV that you need to watch. Monotonous. M-O-N-O-T-O-N-O-U-S. Monotonous. M-O-N-O-T-O-N-O-U-S. Monotonous is another adjective. So it's another word that describes a noun. And it means that something is boring or, no, I'm not going to say that. It means that something is boring or has no variety. Monotonous, M-O-N-O-T-O-N-O-U-S, is an adjective. It's a describing word. And it means that something is boring or is lacking in variety. So if you are describing something as monotonous, it means you're bored. It doesn't change. It's the same. So if say your lunch is monotonous because every single day you have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and an apple, and you're getting really bored with it, and it's never changing. It's always a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and an apple. So you could describe your lunch as monotonous, boring, and has no variety. It doesn't change. Okay, any questions? Anybody need me to spell anything? You can go ahead and write number 6 if you're ready. If you're not ready, I'll give you another minute. And then we're going to move on to number 6. Okay. We're going to go ahead and move on to number 6. Number 6 is the word dawdle. Dawdle. D-A-W-D-L-E. Dawdle. D-A-W-D-L-E. Now this is something a lot of you do, especially when you come to school in the morning. It is a verb. That means it's an action or something you do. And it means to move slowly without purpose. Dawdle, D-A-W-D-L-E, is a verb. It means to move slowly without purpose. Some of you may have heard your parents tell you do this. Some of you may have heard me tell you do this. That means you come into school in the morning and you take 15 minutes just to get your things out of your backpack. You are moving slowly without purpose. Now, usually if you dawdle, it means there is a purpose. You're just moving slowly as if you have no purpose. So if your mom tells you to clean your room, and you go in there and you start to clean it up, but then you pick up your cleaning up and you find you find a ball, and then you start bouncing it. Instead of continuing to clean, you're dawdling. You're moving slowly without a purpose. You have a purpose to clean your room, but you're moving as if you have no purpose. Okay. Any questions about any of these words? How to spell them? Anything like that? We have seen no proper nouns or proper adjectives, which means there should be no capitals. Okay, I'm going to give you about another minute, and then we're going to move on to number 7, which will be the last word. Okay. So number 7 is the word surmise. Surmise. S-U-R-M-I-S-E. Surmise. It is a verb, which means it's another action, or it's another thing that is done. Surmise, S-U-R-M-I-S-E. It is a verb, and it means to guess without complete knowledge. So surmise, S-U-R-M-I-S-E, is a verb. It's an action. It's something that is done. And it means to guess without complete knowledge. So if your friend is telling you about their party and they haven't said anything about you getting to come, you might surmise that you're not invited. But you don't have complete knowledge. They haven't finished telling you about it yet. Maybe you are invited and you just surmised that you weren't because you made a guess without complete knowledge. When you're done with number 7, go ahead and put your vocab back in your return to school folder if you have it on paper, or put your vocab notebook away if you have it in your notebook. And then if you have Phantom Tollbooth, go ahead and get that out. If you do not have Phantom Tollbooth, make sure there is nothing in front of you. You can have your journal to the side, but it should not be right in front of you because you need to put your full knowledge or your full attention on me. If you have Phantom Tollbooth, go ahead and get it out and follow along as I'm reading. If you do not, make sure that the area right in front of you is clear so that you can put your full attention on me. Because remember, you will have comprehension questions, which if you're not listening and you're tuning out, are going to be very, very difficult to answer. Okay, so everybody's area in front of them should be clear, unless you have your Phantom Tollbooth book, in which case that can be out and open to page 16. If you do not, make sure that you are listening closely so that you are able to answer the comprehension questions, because you won't have your book to go back to. So you need to make sure that you are listening very, very carefully. Okay. Chapter 2, Beyond Expectations. Suddenly, he found himself speeding along an unfamiliar country highway. And as he looked back over his shoulder, neither the toll booth nor his room, nor even the house, was anywhere in sight. What had started as make-believe was now very real. What a strange thing to have happen, he thought, just as you might be thinking right now. This game is much more serious than I thought, for here I am riding on a road I've never seen, going to a place I've never heard of, and all because of a toll booth which came from nowhere. I'm certainly glad that it's a nice day for a trip, he concluded hopefully, for at the moment, this was the one thing he definitely knew. The sun sparkled, the sky was clear, and all the colors he saw seemed to be richer and brighter than he could ever remember. The flowers shone as if they'd been cleaned and polished, and the tall trees that lined the road shimmered in silvery green. So here we see a picture of the road. Zaria, I've got the book. You don't need to show. Here we see a picture of the road that he's traveling down. Welcome to Expectations, said a carefully lettered sign on a small house at the side of the road. Information, predictions, and advice cheerfully offered. Park here and blow horn. With the first sound from the horn, a little man in a long coat came rushing from the house, speaking as fast as he could and repeating everything several times. My. Welcome, 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 welcome to the land of expectations, to the land of expectations, to the land of expectations. We don't get many travelers these days. We certainly don't get many travelers these days. Now what can I do for you? I'm the weatherman. Is this the right road for Dictionopolis? Asked Milo, a little bowled over by the effusive greeting. Well now, he began again. I don't know of any wrong road to Dictionopolis, so if this road goes to Dictionopolis at all, it must be the right road. And if it doesn't, it must be the right road to somewhere else, because there are no wrong roads to anywhere. Do you think it'll rain? I thought you were the weatherman, said Milo, very confused. Oh no, said the little man. I'm the weather man, not the weatherman. For after all, it's more important to know whether there will be weather than what the weather will be. And with that, he released a dozen balloons that sailed off into the sky. Must see which way the wind is blowing, he said, chuckling over his little joke and watching them disappear in all directions. And here we have the weatherman with his balloon. What kind of place is Expectations? Inquired Milo, unable to see the humor and feeling very doubtful of the little man's sanity. Good question, he exclaimed. Expectations is the place you must always go to before you get to where you're going. Of course, some people never go beyond expectations, but my job is to hurry them along whether they like it or not. Now, what else can I do for you? And before Milo could reply, he rushed into the house and reappeared a moment later with a new coat and an umbrella. I think I can find my own way, said Milo, not at all sure he could. But since he didn't understand the little man at all, he decided that he might as well move on, at least until he met someone whose sentences didn't always sound as if they would make as much sense backwards as forwards. So right now what Milo's saying is, if you don't understand what's happening right now, neither does Milo. So it's okay. Splendid, 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 exclaimed the weatherman. Whether or not you find your own way, you're bound to find some way. If you happen to find my way, please return it, as it was lost years ago. I imagine by now it's quite rusty. You did say it was going to rain, didn't you? And with that, he opened the umbrella and looked up nervously. I'm glad you made your own decision. I do so hate to make up my mind about anything, whether it's good or bad, up or down, in or out, rain or shine. Expect everything, I always say, and the unexpected never happens. Now, please drive carefully. Goodbye, 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 good... His last goodbye was drowned out by an enormous clap of thunder. And as Milo drove down the road in the bright sunshine, he could see the weatherman standing in the middle of a fierce cloudburst that seemed to be raining only on him. Cullen, are you there? Okay. The road dipped now into a broad green valley and stretched toward the horizon. The little car bounced along with very little effort, and Milo had hardly to touch the accelerator to go as fast as he wanted. He was glad to be on his way again. It's all very well to spend time in Expectations, he thought, but talking to that strange man all day would certainly get me nowhere. He's the most peculiar person I've ever met, continued Milo, unaware of how many peculiar people he would shortly encounter. As he drove along the peaceful highway, he soon fell to daydreaming and paid less and less attention to where he was going. In a short time, he wasn't paying any attention at all, and that is why, at a fork in the road, when a sign pointed to the left, Milo went to the right, along a route which looked suspiciously like the wrong way. Things began to change as soon as he left the main highway. The sky became quite gray, and along with it, the whole countryside seemed to lose its color and assume the same monotonous tone. Everything was quiet, and even the air hung heavily. The birds sang only gray songs, and the road wound back and forth in an endless series of climbing curves. So here we see Milo, right there, driving along the strange and curvy and monotonous gray road. Yes, sorry, quickly.
My book's a little different because my words are on a different page.
Yes, that's how mine is too. It's just because if I'd shown that picture without reading that paragraph, would it have made much sense? No. So sometimes the book, because they can't fit, they have to put it a little bit before, but when you get to the next page, you'll find out. Mile after mile after mile after mile he drove. And now, gradually, the car went slower and slower until it was hardly moving at all. Make sure you're paying attention to me, not what's going on. Everybody should have, I forgot to say this morning, everybody should have it on speaker view, and my box should be pinned. So if you haven't done that, make sure you do that right now. Because you don't need to see each other. That's just a distraction. It looks as though I'm getting nowhere, yawned Milo, becoming very drowsy and dull. I hope I haven't taken a wrong turn. Mile after mile after mile after mile, and everything became grayer and more monotonous. Finally, the car just stopped altogether, and hard as he tried, it wouldn't budge another inch. Carla, please sit up. Carla, sit up, please. Make sure you're following along. I wonder where I am, said Milo in a very worried tone. You're in the doldrums, wailed a voice that sounded far away. He looked around quickly to see who had spoken. No one was there, and it was as quiet and still as one could imagine. Yes, the doldrums, yawned another voice, but still Milo saw no one. What are the doldrums? He cried loudly and tried very hard to see who would answer this time. The doldrums, my young friend, are where nothing ever happens and nothing ever changes. This time the voice came from so close that Milo jumped with surprise, for sitting on his right shoulder, so lightly that he hardly noticed, was a small creature, exactly the color of his shirt. So here we have the little creature. Allow me to introduce all of us, the creature went on. We are the Lethargarians, at your service. Milo looked around and for the first time noticed dozens of them, sitting on the car, standing in the road, and lying all over the trees and bushes. They were very difficult to see because whatever they happened to be sitting on or near was exactly the color they happened to be. Each one looked very much like the other, except for the color, of course. And some looked even more like each other than they did like themselves. I'm very pleased to meet you, said Milo, not sure whether or not he was pleased at all. I think I'm lost. Can you help me, please? Don't say think, said one sitting on his shoe, for the one on his shoulder had fallen asleep. It's against the law. And he yawned and fell off to sleep too. No one's allowed to think in the doldrums, continued a third, beginning to doze off. And as each one spoke, he fell off to sleep, and another picked up the conversation with hardly any interruption. Don't you have a rule book? It's Local Ordinance 175389J. Milo quickly pulled the rule book from his pocket, opened to the page, and read, Ordinance 175389J. It shall be unlawful, illegal, and unethical to think of thinking, surmise, presume, reason, meditate, or speculate while in the doldrums. Anyone breaking this law shall be severely punished. And here's Milo with his rule book and all the little Lethargarians all around. Carla, you need to sit up. Yes, Kingston, quickly. You're muted.
That picture, they kind of look like frogs for some reason.
A little bit. They don't have much of a shape. That's a ridiculous law, said Milo quite indignantly. Everybody thinks. We don't, shouted the Lethargarians all at once. And most of the time, you don't, said a yellow one sitting in a daffodil. That's why you're here. You weren't thinking and you weren't paying attention either. People who don't pay attention often get stuck in the doldrums. And with that, he toppled out of the flower and fell snoring into the grass. Milo couldn't help laughing at the little creature's strange behavior, even though he knew it might be rude. Stop that at once, ordered the plaid one, clinging to his stocking. Laughing is against the law. Don't you have a rule book? It's Local Ordinance 574381W. Opening the book again, Milo found Ordinance 574381W. In the doldrums, laughter is frowned upon and smiling is permitted only on alternate Thursdays. Violators shall be dealt with most harshly. Well, if you can't laugh or think, what can you do? Asked Milo. Anything as long as it's nothing, and everything as long as it isn't anything, explained another. There's lots to do. We have a very busy schedule. At 8 o'clock, we get up, and then we spend from 8 to 9 daydreaming. From 9 to 9:30, we take our early mid-morning nap. From 9:30 to 10:30, we dawdle and delay. From 10:30 to 11:30, we take our late early morning nap. From 11:30 to 12, we bide our time and then eat lunch. From 1 to 2, we linger and loiter. From 2 to 2:30, we take our early afternoon nap. From 2:30 to 3:30, we put off for tomorrow what we could have done today. From 3:30 to 4, we take our early late afternoon nap. From 4 to 5, we loaf and lounge until dinner. From 6 to 7, we dilly-dally. From 7 to 8, we take our early evening nap. And then for an hour before we go to bed at 9, we waste time. As you can see, that leaves almost no time for brooding, lagging, plotting, or procrastinating. Carla, I'm going to make you stand. You need to sit up, and you need to follow along with the book. As you can see, that leaves almost no time for brooding, lagging, plotting, or procrastinating. And if we stopped to think or laugh, we'd never get nothing done. You mean you'd never get anything done, corrected Milo. We don't want to get anything done, snapped another angrily. We want to get nothing done, and we can do that without your help. You see, continued another in a more conciliatory tone, it's really quite strenuous doing nothing all day. So once a week, we take a holiday and go nowhere, which was just where we were going when you came along. Would you care to join us? I might as well, thought Milo. That's where I seem to be going anywhere. Anyway. Tell me, he yawned, for he felt ready for a nap now himself. Does everyone here do nothing? Everyone but the terrible watchdog, said two of them, shuddering in chorus. He's always sniffing around to see that nobody wastes time. A most unpleasant character. Guys, you need to make sure that you're paying close attention. Otherwise, when you do these comprehension questions, it's going to be really hard because you're going to have no idea what it's even talking about because you weren't listening when I was reading it. It is possible to do this without the book. The first 2 years I taught this book, the kids didn't have the book. It wasn't until last year that I decided I wanted everybody to have the book. So you can do it. You just have to pay attention. Kingston, make sure your camera stays on. Don't mess with the screen, please. The watchdog, said Milo quizzically. The watchdog, shouted another, fainting from fright, for racing down the road, barking furiously and kicking up a great cloud of dust, was the very dog of whom they had been speaking. So here we see the watchdog. Run! Wake up! Run! Here he comes, the watchdog! Great shouts filled the air as the Lethargarians scattered in all directions and soon disappeared entirely. Ruh! Exclaimed the watchdog as he dashed up to the car, loudly puffing and panting. Milo's eyes opened wide, for there in front of him was a large dog with a perfectly normal head, 4 feet and a tail, and the body of a loudly ticking alarm clock. So here you see Milo and the watchdog. What are you doing here? Growled the watchdog. Just killing time, replied Milo apologetically. You see, killing time, roared the dog, so furiously that his alarm went off. It's bad enough wasting time without killing it. And he shuddered at the thought. Why are you in the doldrums anyway? Don't you have anywhere to go? I was on my way to Dictionopolis when I got stuck here, explained Milo. Can you help me? Help you? You must help yourself, the dog replied, carefully winding himself with his left hind leg. I suppose you know why you got stuck. Here's the watchdog winding himself. I guess I just wasn't thinking, said Milo. Precisely, shouted the dog as his alarm went off again. Now you know what you must do. I'm afraid I don't, admitted Milo, feeling quite stupid. Well, continued the watchdog impatiently, since you got here by not thinking, it seems reasonable to expect that in order to get out, you must start thinking. And with that, he hopped into the car. Do you mind if I get in? I love automobile rides. Milo began to think as hard as he could, which was very difficult since he wasn't used to it. He thought of birds that swim and fish that fly. He thought of yesterday's lunch and tomorrow's dinner. He thought of words that began with J and numbers that end in 3. And as he thought, the wheels began to turn. We're moving, he shouted happily. Keep thinking, scolded the watchdog. The little car started to go faster and faster as Milo's brain whirled with activity, and down the road they went. In a few moments, they were out of the doldrums and back on the main highway. All the colors had returned to their original brightness, and as they raced along the road, Milo continued to think of all sorts of things, of the many detours and wrong turns that were so easy to take, of how fine it was to be moving along, and most of all, of how much could be accomplished with just a little thought. And the dog, his nose in the wind, just sat back, watchfully ticking. Okay. So if you have your book, go ahead and put it to the side. And go ahead and get out your journal from yesterday. If you have your actual reading journal, turn to the next clean page, even if that's the back. If you do not have your reading journal, go ahead and use the back of yesterday's journal. If you already started on the back with yesterday's journal, just put a squiggly line under it and start the next one. Okay, so once you have your journal out, go ahead and at the top, write TPT, Chapter 2, Beyond Expectations, and then today's date. So I'm going to give you a minute to do that, and then I'm going to move you to where the questions are. If you have the questions printed out, go ahead and pull them out. If not, make sure that you can get to them on the device you're on, because it may be hard to see them. If you had no trouble reading them on the screen yesterday, though, you should be okay today. If I'm pinned, like I should be, then that should mean that all you can see are the questions, like big, so it should be easy. You need to make sure that at all times you're in speaker view and my window is pinned. So at the top of your page, you should have TPT, Chapter 2, Beyond Expectations, with all the same punctuation that I have, and then today's date. Yes, Zadie. You're muted.
I have it on speaker view and your pin, but it still shows everyone else small at the top.
Yes, but mine should be the biggest, and you don't need to be watching everybody else small. Okay, so does everybody have TPT, Chapter 2, quotation mark, Beyond Expectations, quotation mark, underlined with today's date, February 23rd, 2021. Okay, I'll give you another 30 seconds. Okay. If you have these questions printed out, you can read along with me. Number 1 says, what do you think the weatherman meant when he said, some people never go beyond expectations? So this is your opinion. What do you think that means? That means, unless you're not thinking at all, there is no wrong answer. Unless you're just like writing something to write something. Number 2 says, describe the lethargarians that Milo meets in the doldrums. So that means the first part of that question, you're just describing them. You're using adjectives to tell about these little creatures, the lethargarians. Then the next part of the question says, why do you think they are called this? Now there's a base word in Lethargarians that some of you may know. If not, just why do you think they're called Lethargarians? Describe them, then tell why you think they're called this. Again, why do you think they're called this? The why do you think says that you're writing an opinion, so as long as you have put some thought into it, you won't have a wrong answer. Number 3 says, what are some of the rules in the doldrums? Name at least 2. So remember, Milo was reading the rule book. You need to name at least 2 of those rules that he named in the rule book. Number 4, explain how Milo is able to leave the doldrums. So at the end of the chapter, he's on his way out of the doldrums. He's leaving. How was he able to do that? His car was stuck. Why was he all of a sudden able to move and get out of the doldrums? Now that is text evidence, so that comes from the text. Number 5, would you like to live in the doldrums? That's the first part, so do you want to live in the doldrums? Yes or no? Then you have to say why or why not. If you said yes, why do you want to live in the doldrums? If you said no, why do you not want to live in the doldrums? So everybody, you need at least 2 complete sentences. Watch your grammar. I will be counting off. This time you will lose, since this is our second novel study, you will lose a whole point for every grammar mistake instead of half. Does everybody understand? Make sure that you have answered with at least 2 complete sentences. Some of them require more. Make sure that you answer every part of the question.